What's up, 50 folders? Today we're going to be covering Excel financial models, specifically something that might seem really boring, but it's really, really important. And that's formatting your model. Okay, so what are you going to learn in this video? What's the TLDR? So we're going to cover standard colors that are going to cover every model. That should be done by everyone, at least who was a banker or a consultant and had to do all these basically for the job. We'll be talking about why this matters. We'll look at some examples so that you actually get it. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about, when you don't need to spend time making your model look really fancy. It's mainly because you just want to get the freaking thing done ASAP. Ready for it? Let's go. So firstly, why should you care about formatting your Excel financial model? Well, there's three key reasons. So firstly, it's easier for you to update if you're building a large model. Secondly, if someone else is going to have a look at that model, they're going to want to have a pleasant experience to get it done. And thirdly, it makes you look credible. It makes you look professional. Now let's quickly cover those 3 points. So when you're building something for yourself, if it's going to take more than maybe an hour or two, maybe days, maybe months, in your case, you're going to want to make sure that your model is easy to interact with, right? So there's a couple of categories which you're going to have to deal with, which are assumptions. It's going to be links, it's going to be drop-down menus, and it's going to be your formulas. Now, if you can't tell the difference in particular between assumptions and your formulas, things are going to get really messy very quickly, especially if you're regularly changing some assumptions, or you're not quite sure what those assumptions are, you're spending time iterating around a little bit, you'll figure it out, but you want to be able to click on a sheet, especially if there's lots of sheets in your models. As you can see, if we look in this one, there's a lot of sheets, and this is only just the start. You want to go in and out and only focus on the assumptions that matter and not really the formulas unless something's broken. But if you've built your model properly, you're not really going to be changing your formulas unless you want to add in some additional functionality. Okay, now the second reason is when other people are going to be dealing with your Excel model. Maybe you work in FP&A, doing all the financial models for some big company. Maybe you're an investor doing LP reporting, or you're a startup building a model for investors, using it for operational purposes, managing a sales team, managing a marketing team, managing finance, and all the fun that goes around in the startups, right? You're going to want to have some useful tools that let people know what they should do and really what they shouldn't. Because if you build something that works, and all people need to do is fill in the boxes, you want to make it really clear that that's what they need to do and that they shouldn't touch everything else. Now, finally, third reason is it makes you, by proxy from your model, look professional. Now, I sell a lot of financial models, and the example we'll be looking at is one of my models. Surprise! And the first thing anyone will ever comment is, wow, it looks really nice, right? And when things look nice, they look polished, a lot of work's probably gone into it, right? It makes it look like you've gone that extra mile and you actually understand what's going on beyond just the pure mechanics of it. And so when people have a positive experience with your model, you earn a lot more brownie points. You could have just done exactly the same amount of work, made some brilliant model, right? With perfectly accurate outcomes coming out, maybe a bunch of different scenarios running through it. But if it looks like dog shit, people kind of are going to think it's not great, right? Now, have you downloaded some free tool, maybe from me or one of a million other people around the world, or maybe even downloaded something from the Pirate Bay? I don't know. I don't judge. But when you look at a tool and it looks good, you think, this is probably pretty professional, right? Whereas if there's zero formatting whatsoever, like the most advanced thing they've done is maybe bold some text, maybe italicize, like a guide at the top, you kind of discount it quite quickly, right? It doesn't feel like a quality product. And this is the most amazing thing. If you just spent a bit of time, and a lot of tricks, which I'll teach you over time, or you'll pick up yourself, that extra little bit of time, it could even just be 15 minutes, genuinely can move what you've built from to right? If you want to learn more quickly right now, because I put a little bit of work into this already, I wrote a blog, if I can just pull it up, and there's another YouTube video for it, and it's called, if it'll open up so you can see it probably, How to Make Your Financial Model Look Professional. Surprise! And there's actually a free download that you can get if you fill in the box somewhere. Here, get the before and after model, just whack in your name, email address, whatever thing you'll learn, whatever, so you get more emails from me. No sales, by the way. Click subscribe, it'll be sent to you, and you can actually do the exercise just to kind of level up your skills. No upsell, just it's pure free. I just need to send it to you somehow, all right? If you want to watch the video, there's the video guide here, which will take you through the whole process. You can also have a little bit of a read, and you'll pick up cool little things like, for example, spark lines, which is one of the things which everyone's minds always get blown. It's like, oh my God, Alex, how did you do that? So you'll pick up a lot of cool little tips, but really what we're going to take you from, I don't know if there's any images here, is from something that looks horrible into something that looks actually pretty professional. And it doesn't take all the time in the world. Cool. So check out that. I can hide that away now. What are we going to get next to? So let's actually just talk about the basics of what colors and styles you're going to want to use in any model. And these are not something I invented, some things I've played around to improve upon it, but this is what I learned in investment banking. And anyone who works in sort of professional services, the white collar job, this is how they do it, or how they should have been taught to have done it anyway, okay? So if you look at the screen now here, stop looking at my beautiful face. First thing I want to talk about is anything which is editable needs to be in blue, okay? Blue means if you want to change it, feel free to do it. Obviously, if it's a number, then put in the number. Otherwise, if you type in like COO or text into where it should be a number, it's going to throw an error into your model. If you then are going to link to another sheet, which I'll explain in a second, just in case you're new and you don't really understand, then it's going to end up looking green. So it's sort of halfway between an assumption and the formula in a way, but it's just linking to a separate sheet. So it's a formula on another sheet, which you're just pulling into your calculation. And then when you have formulas, which generally, if you build something quite large, is going to be the vast majority of your model. Now, let's explain this a little bit more now. I've just kind of gone over this quite quickly. As you see, there's a couple of other things going here. So formulas are simple. It's pretty much always just black numbers. You normally see that, equals this times by that, and, in number terms, right? And it's a formula, okay? Links linking to another sheet. So it looks like intro links there. If you press Control right, it should go there to wherever that place is, but again, it's not linked to anything special in the sheet. But you can typically track to the other sheet that it goes through, like it's in the intro sheet, C16, which, that's that. Okay, anyway. So this is linking to that. So, there we go, boom, it goes there. Let's explain these blue ones, because I'm not super critical about some of them. We'll see here, let's do with drop-down menus. It's something I've used a background color, which is a orange, okay? And when we have this, we use the drop down or use Alt down. You see it's on and off, which I have as defined list. So here, I want to know that typically, maybe there's a scenario I want to turn a sheet on or off. It's not really an assumption, it's a variable to change all the assumptions that go on. So maybe I have a detailed sheet and a basic sheet. You want to switch between them, you can do that. Or you just want to turn the sheet off so none of the assumptions flow through. There's just a little drop down menu to do that. Or you're running scenarios, 1, 2, 3. I wouldn't be too annoyed if the text was in black. It doesn't matter so much. What matters more is the background color for this, okay? It's a little bit more advanced. And then here, we see we've got a number, which is 60,000. Typically, if there's no dollar sign or currency before it, it's going to be unit as opposed to a currency number. This text should be blue. What I do is I make the background this yellow. And there's some investment banks, like for example, JP Morgan, who will do this too. I want to make it really evident that that is where the assumption blocks. And if you've got a lot of numbers in a page and you've got a little bit of blindness and you've got all the screens like I do here, I've got 5, you want to be able to see exactly where things are as quickly as absolutely possible. And if you then accidentally, I don't know, for some reason have it as black instead of blue, you can still see a very obvious yellow box. And I'll show you some examples so you exactly get it. But what I personally do is have a yellow box with blue in it. A mid-quality person will just have the blue text is sort of the banking standard. I go a little step further and just make sure everything is a yellow background with a blue, so I know for sure it's an input. But that background really makes it pop. Now we have this here, again, because like if it's a title, it's the person's name, it's an assumption, it's an input, so it should be blue. Now I'm going to show you an example in the staff sheet that I've actually changed this to be having yellow backgrounds now, but with these things, it's not a big deal because assumptions are going to change what flows through your model, right? They are going to be the variables for everything. Your formulas are going to do whatever these assumptions tell you to do by making calculations. And if you have lots of sheets, as you can see here I do, these will link together, and so those formulas will base off themselves. So you want to make those relatively clear. You don't always need to necessarily be really anal about the whole green versus black thing, because at the end of the day, they're sort of just formulas. But it's definitely best practice. There are examples where I won't use green, and I'll show you that in a second. But it's basically when I know it's just a presentation, it's an output, it's like a KPI sheet or something, where basically everything is a link to another sheet because you're aggregating those numbers together. And frankly, you know it's an output sheet, and black just looks better. Green is sort of a little bit icky. Also, just to bear in mind, I've purposefully made these bold, just so that you can see them better on this YouTube video. But normally they won't be bold. You only really want to bold things when it's a total. We've got like gross revenue, and then we've got like net revenue. So we have bold, non-bolded deductions, and then we get to net, and then we have to with our costs that come down to, and we get to net profit. So your gross revenue should be bold, maybe your net revenue, maybe the summation of your operating costs, and then key line items, net profits, EBITDAs. The ones that you care about, you'll typically bold those, or however visually makes it easy to structure through. But we're getting a little bit off point here now. So those are the key colors that you want to be thinking about, and also adding in the backgrounds, which is something I push a lot more, especially since I left banking and do a lot of models, okay? So bear in mind these background colors. So we'll look here, I've got, in all my models, I've got this formatting sheet, which basically you'll only fill in once, and you really won't look again. Pretty simple. We can change the currencies or something using my cool little macro here with a currency swap. We can set which one of the currencies that we want to be using. You see here the orange is a drop down menu, right? Which is a list which is pulling up from these. And then we'll see here, right? We've got our yellow boxes with the blue text in them, which is setting the dates for it. We'll see here I've kind of grayed out this little number. It's not important. It's just a little reference. So we'll have 3 months of actuals, and then the modelable forecast from April. So the difference between Jan and April is going to be this little calculation here, 3. So it's kind of grayed out because it's not important. We'll see here with the text, I've sort of grayed out because it's part of a guide. You'll read it once, but then you'll understand it. But you want to focus on what's happening here. Also notice that to kind of clarify things a bit, I use background colors to break things up visually. Okay, it's not the key point of what I'm trying to teach you in this video, but it's something you should be paying attention to. Now let's look at, say, the P&L actual sheet, which is mainly all about putting the inputs in. We'll see here. We've got units and we've got currencies, right? But basically the difference between this one and this one is there's a dollar sign in front of it, right? Which, just has a different format for it. But fundamentally it's the same, it's aligned nicely, right? But we've got blue with a yellow background. Now see here, if you eagle-eyed, these are green. So these are links. We see here it collects to the annual assumptions sheet. And then we have our totals here, which are bolded because I'm going to spell this out, and these are black because they're formulas, okay? So we can see here quickly, okay, we've got formulas, it's little if error calculations, we've got total because it's bolded, more inputs. Oh, these are linked to another sheet. So they won't calculate here, they come from somewhere else. So typically you assume there must be assumptions on those sheets, which are then being relinked to this page because it matters for that reason. That's pretty much the same thing for the rest of the sheet, okay? If we look at P&L forecast, things are grouped up. We'll see here it's only the bolded parts left. We'll see there's actually very few assumptions I need to fill in this sheet. So it's not a big deal. One row, okay, cool. We can group them, we can ungroup them, and we'll see ultimately what matters. And we'll see that in this sheet, except the title, the summations, all the links in are in green, right? And they're all aligned nice and properly. Now, if we look at KPI sheet, just let's look at the staff sheet here, right? Well, if I zoom out just a little bit, we'll see we've got a payroll and taxes, which applies to everyone. Yellow background, blue input. We're going to adding a staff, which are yellow inputs, blue text. We've got links in, which you see, they're in green. Summations are in black. And I want to find these staff names. Okay, here. So we'll see in previous models, I actually didn't have yellow boxes, right? They were just blue text, right? But because I'm making a model for someone else, I want to make sure it's really easy and obvious what's going on down in Funky Town, or something, right? And so I actually purposely changed these to have yellow backgrounds now because I want to make it really obvious to you that this is something that you can fill in. Nothing's linked to them, but we'll see here, these are actual inputs, which matter. And then we've got this crazy huge formulas, which I spent ages figuring out how to do, which link to all these assumptions. But if you type in blah, 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 it doesn't matter, like nothing, won't do anything with the model, okay? But I've purposefully changed the way I used to do things because I know it's more important for someone else to understand what they should do, what they shouldn't touch, because let's face it, I mean, do you really want to figure out how to make crazy calculations like that? No, you want to put in your inputs and get the heck out of here. Let's see here, we've got little drop-down menus, which are basically blue text, but because it's the drop-down, which is just selected, you can change between things. I have started making them orange so that I can quickly tell the difference and know, especially don't you know, that there's a little arrow here that is a drop-down. It's a little improvement I've made. And you can see everything looks pretty nice, right? It's formatted with different colors. The darker colors are at the top, the lighter colors go down, so you can see the breakups between things. And occasionally you might see something like this, because I want to make sure you can see the difference between things. And if you're eagle-eyed, you might have noticed a ugly-ass color going on, which is somewhere at the top. And see here, right? This is an old work in progress model, which I pulled up just to show you. We'll see here that there are these ugly yellow-ass boxes here, okay? Which is not of any common formatting that you see in the model, because I want to make it egregious to my eye. Because when I'm building huge models, or when you're building huge models, you want to, sometimes it can be overwhelming, so you have to chunk things up and just get things done, go back to different parts when you need to. So what I do is I highlight big yellow boxes to make it really obvious to me that this is something I need to fix before I share it with anyone. Occasionally I might do something like, I know this needs to be linked to the new sheet. And so when I'm therefore modeling the rest of the model, I can come back and go, fuck, what was it doing here? Oh, okay, I need to relink the channel sales staff to the right sheet, right? But it's not meant to be for formatting. I'm purposefully picking it. If you want to do something more advanced, I spent 12 days trying to figure 2 formulas, and I came up with so many different ways that I could try and actually solve the problem. What I started doing was using background colors to actually show what version of a problem I was working on. So maybe I make this ugly ass blue. It's kind of hard to read the text, right? I would normally change it to maybe white if I could be bothered. And so maybe I go and try a different version of something, and I'll see, oh, the yellow one was the first one, the blue one was the second try, and the third one was the red attempt. And so maybe I've got lots of different formulas in different boxes and places, trying to see what version was on. Anyway, point being, if you really get into modeling, you have to build lots of big things. Applying ugly ass background colors like this can help you keeping track of what you need to do, what version or attempt or iteration of things you're trying on. But you know, you'll learn for yourself over time as you really get into these things. What I really want to make sure you get is understanding what colors the things should be, because the difference between being a pleb and being a master at this is just doing the basics really well. And formatting is just, it's criminally important when you're building models. Even if it's basic ones or something you use forever, it's really helpful to do this. I didn't make this really clear. The thing is, I always just use text in black, right? When you see text, you know, marketing, various S&M, sales, marketing, travel costs, whatever, you know it's not a formula, right? It's just black on white is the highest contrast, and so therefore you should have it like that. What I've really focused on in terms of formatting is when things are going to be formulas, when they're going to be inputs, or when they're going to be links to other sheets. Now I mentioned, let's look for that KPI sheet. a time where I do have links, but I don't change them to green. Okay, actually, that's horrible because in this case they are green. I might have done this to just make things easier, but anyway, okay, so I'm, 6 of one, half dozen the other, right? Let's just change these all to black. I don't really mind if these are all now black, right? The color difference is not even that large. I just think it's a little bit cleaner and nicer to look at. And so I probably changed the green just to make it more obvious for people like you. But I wouldn't mind necessarily if they were just all black, because I know it's just an output sheet. Probably the best example where I'm pretty sure I'm not going to mess this up live in video is a P&L for deck sheet, right? These are all links, like you see, right? I didn't spend the time agonizing over this. Nothing's linked to it, so you can do whatever you want to this sheet and nothing will happen, right? The world's not going to end. You're not going to blow up the model, right? These are all links, right? Everything, P&L combined, they're all linked to the P&L combined sheet. Metrics are linking to the SaaS KPI sheets, right? But if I actually convert them to the colors they should be using my little tool, or to color this sheet, we can see everything's green now. Everything is green, except for maybe the titles, which may be manually typed in. These ones are linked, P&L combined actually. See, almost everything is green. And that's because of the links. You're still probably thinking, Alex, this formatting stuff doesn't really seem to be a lot of value add. There's gonna be times when I'm not gonna want to deal with this shit, right? Yeah, I'm the same way. Now, there absolutely are times where formatting is a complete and horrendous waste of time. And I'm going to show you exactly an example of that right now. So I'm so used to using Excel that I almost don't even use the calculator on my computer anymore, okay? Or I just do everything in my head. Let's say I just want to do some very basic maths. I'm on the phone with someone, they're talking about their margins or something, I want to do some quick calculation. So let's just do orders times by price equals gross revenue. So I have 100 orders, and the average price is $10, and therefore formula this times by this equals $1,000. I'm anal, so I'll use shortcuts and whatever. That shouldn't be that, it should be this. So 100 orders at the price point of $10 now equals $1,000. I'll probably bold that just because I want to make it easier, and if you know shortcuts, heck, why not, right? I just made this. I'm probably going to delete it by the end of the phone call. Maybe I'll add some other things on, or I'll do like a arrange and say, okay, cool, let's copy this now. And I say 100 orders. What happens if it goes up by 100 orders? I'll go around like this. And let's say the price will increase by this times by 1.05% should be increased by 5%. Across increased by 5% a year. It'll compound, go uppy, uppy, uppy. The formula will stay the same, so I'm going to drag shift right, press Control R on a PC, and we'll see what the new summation is across for the range. Okay, and I'm going to put these up so everything aligns properly. Okay. I've quickly said, oh, okay, but hey, Jim, if your order is now 1,000 and your pricing is increasing, compounded by that price, you'll end up with, say, 15,500. Okay, great, that's fantastic. But now what happens if we say that he sends me a sheet or something, and I say, well, my price here is actually going to be based off this variable. Well, I'll just link it to another sheet. And for whatever reason, I decide that we're adding more calculations, this is getting bigger, maybe we're going to use it. I actually don't know what is a formula, what's an input anymore, because I'm not really paying attention, I'm on the phone with you. So you can manually do it by changing all the assumptions, or I can quickly just use my macro, which you can buy, obviously, and it does auto coloring for you that quickly. And we'll see here, this is an input, this is an input, this is an input, this is a link, right? It's linked to this sheet at this point here. But all these other ones are formulas, right? Like maybe I delete the sheet by accident. I can know that I will then relink that to somewhere else. So maybe I'll have assumptions if I want to build this out more, and it would be, what is it, price, starting price, and that's going to be equal to say $500. It's an input. I can manually reformat it like that. Boom, bitches. I can relink this to here. I can manually do this again, or I could use Alex's awesome little macro to automatically do it using my shortcuts. And now I can tell that this is no longer linked to this sheet. So if I delete this link sheet, nothing blows up in the model, okay? Otherwise it would have if I had done that the other way. With shortcuts and with like my macros plugins, you can actually save time doing quite a lot. But if I'm doing something like this, I just don't care because I know what I'm doing. I know what the inputs are. It's fresh in my mind. I'm not saving this in my downloads folder and coming back to it in 2 weeks' time. I know what's going on, right? So let's look at an example of a real example of when I started out with a dirty little model like that, and I turned it into something a little bit more professional. So this is a real model for a business I looked up setting up, which is doing food delivery for pregnant women. It's not formatted amazingly, but it's okay. We'll see here we've got some yellow boxes, so I know they're inputs. I was lazy, I didn't bother changing it, but actually I could if I want to just use my macro. I've bolded it, I have some spaces to see what's going on in different places for my different countries. So it's relatively easy to parse the data. Everything's, the columns are the right widths. I use some conditional formatting, some very ghetto little male versus female thing. Yellow boxes again, I know they're inputs. And then I found something from Maple, which is a failed New York startup. And we'll see, everything's I've just copied and pasted or reformatted them properly and haven't done anything to it. If I could be bothered, I literally would just, because it's my magic macro, I could just pop that. Suddenly everything would change. And you can see here, these are inputs. These are now blue instead of black. The only mess up here is that these are no longer white, but that's a little side issue. We'll just quickly change these. And now that's black and white, but basically the whole thing is suddenly formatted. You don't have to manually go look for everything, and you know everything's nice and clean. But you notice, like, I made this myself. The model looks good enough. I used yellow background boxes, so I just couldn't be bothered to change the whole thing to blue because it's kind of obvious to me. But if I wanted to be a perfectionist or I wanted to share it with people, then I would have done that, right? But here, this is only starting to get to the point where you want to. But you'll notice here, like, at this 0.25%, which I'm sure a lot of things are probably driving for it, I'm just making quick ranges. Like, for my purposes, I just want to make something quick, useful, get in, get out. I'm not going to share it with anyone. I'm going to use it for so much until my analysis is done, and then it's going to go into my Dropbox folder, and I'll forget about it forever. Unless I was teaching you how to make videos on YouTube. Right, anyway. So what's next? So back to when do you not want to format? Okay, when you need to do something quickly and you'll never use it again. The example of, I don't know, calculating margins or something on a phone call with a client, or when everything's simple, it's on one sheet, there's no links to other sheets, etc. It's relatively small, it's easier to follow. You're not really going to change it. Like, you know, this examples, I'm not really going to change these things again. I don't really care. Yeah, it took me a little bit of a while to make this model, but once I looked at the numbers and decided it doesn't make any sense anymore, I don't need it anymore, right? But you tell me, like, what is your view on this? Let me know in the comments below if you think it's worthwhile actually formatting things properly in this case, or would you actually do them properly? Or like me, maybe just half-ass it when it doesn't matter. How do you think about saving your time? Let me know, okay? There are a couple places in the net where you can get auto formatting tools. If you are going to be doing a lot, you've just seen how easy it is for me to quickly be able to surface up what's linked, what's a connection, what's not. And so if you want to save some time, I recommend getting my plugin. It's super cheap, adds lots of value. And some of the cool functionality is just basically pushing a button. Like, you can change the entire model, right? You can change the sheet, or you can select something specific and you can then change the colors. There's some other really cool stuff like saving your models and changing currencies and nerdy shit that you're gonna do to do formatting or, you know, changing views and whatnot. I'll explain this in another video, which I think I'm gonna do next, on how to save models properly all the time so you don't end up crying like a little bitch. It's so important. I have some so funny stories where I literally found a girl crying in the office. Not to pick on being a girl, but she spent 2 days, never saved a model, like, lessons, not get into it. Now, The next video I'm actually going to make is going to be the best practices of formatting and modeling, specifically with assumptions, these little yellow boxes, right? And again, I know it sounds like a snooze fest, but this is one of the most important things, the basics that you need to do really well in order to build great models and to be able to use other people's models, for example, like mine, like a mother freaking master. Now, if you like this video, smash like. If you want me to make specific videos for you, again, on nerdy topics, not all the stuff you can find all around the internet. I just want to teach you the hard stuff that you need to learn that you can't find elsewhere. Let me know what you'd like me to make, and I'll start making more videos for you. All right, guys, boom, there we go. I think I talked for like 32 minutes about Excel models, about like formatting colors. Anyway, all right. Hopefully by then there'll be a video here and you can like watch it there or maybe here or something. I'll wait while you watch the next video about assumptions. Go on, click it. It's gonna get awkward soon. Okay, this got awkward.